In a statement a little while ago, Freeland wrote, "Ukraine is at the forefront of today's global fight for democracy, and I welcome this chance to contribute on an unpaid basis as an economic advisor to President Zelensky." Freeland's announcement that she will be resigning in the coming weeks came after criticism from the opposition. As Conservative Foreign Affairs critic Michael Chong said in a statement this morning, one cannot be a Canadian MP and an advisor to a foreign government. She must do one or the other. She should resign as advisor or as MP for University Rosedale.
Gang, what's up? Aaron, Canadian Looney. We've got David Cochrane here, the cockroach from CBC propaganda machine, the legacy media that the Liberals pay to tell their lies, warp your mind, whatever. CHRYSTIA Freeland hopped on her broom, sent over to the Ukraine. Is she going to resign? Let's find out. Good riddance, CHRYSTIA Freeland. So long, sayonara. Let's watch David Cochrane cry about it.
Who cares?
Now, Freeland announced in September she would not run in the next federal election, but her resignation means there will be a by-election sometime soon, and this is a minority parliament, so that's going to be fun. We're going to start there with the power panel. Supriya Dwivedi was an advisor to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Brad Levine is a former national campaign director for the NDP. And here with me in the studio, Kate Harrison is a conservative political analyst, and Rob Russo is the Canada correspondent for The Economist. It is good to see you all. Supriya, when we were starting this day, I thought we'd be...
Before we get into it, let's just make it clear. CHRYSTIA Freeland should resign now. You can't do these two jobs at the same time, making an excuse up about being unpaid. This is BS. You know the CBC isn't going to talk about that very much, but it's a very compromised position she's putting Canadians in. It's disgusting. CBC.
Talking about the sort of issue of how can you advise two governments at the same time, and should Freeland step down? So she's no longer advising Mark Carney, and I'm told that by the end of this month she will step down as a member of Parliament. What do you make of the way this was handled?
I mean, look, it was obviously not flawlessly executed, right? I think the tweet that Ms. Freeland had put out just, about an hour ago or whatever, and then had the Prime Minister quote tweet her, congratulating her on her new role, probably should have happened at the time that the announcement was made earlier in the day when it was announced that she was going to take that role, because, Michael Chong is absolutely right, as well as the critics. You can't be a sitting MP while also taking jobs with the foreign government, even if that job is, in fact, unpaid and is on a voluntary basis and, is supposed to be not a full-time gig. Just the optics of it alone, even if it doesn't run afoul of the Conflict of Interest Act, the optics alone are terrible. And it shouldn't be too much to ask of our parliamentarians that they don't treat being an MP as an effective side hustle.
So, Brad, does it matter that it's Ukraine and that it's President Zelensky? Because, there is real merit in the argument that you can't sit in the Canadian Parliament and work for another country. But does the context change that, or is it just one had to go no matter what?
Yeah, one had to go no matter what. But I think that most people want to see CHRYSTIA Freeland succeed in helping Zelensky and the Ukrainian people reconstruct if there is a peace in the near term. So I think a lot of people are rooting. If it was for another government, like let's say, pick a European nation or even a non-ally, I think a lot more people would be upset. But listen, I believe that with her statement just before before Power and Politics started, excellent timing. But I think it takes a lot of wind out of Mr. Chong's sails, and I think the Conservatives are going to have a hard time picking this apart. Now, the real question now is, she says that she is going to resign her seat by the end of the month, but its effective date is something that is less than clear. There are some important votes. When the House reconvenes on the 26th of January, we still have some confidence motions in getting over in the first number of weeks. I would be looking for when that effective date does kick in. Now, on the other hand, I am also of the, I think much of Ottawa is thinking similar, that we're not done with opposition members of Parliament moving from the opposition benches to the government benches, which would then, I think, make the vacancy of University Rosedale less important for any confidence motions that are coming up in the near term. So I'm not predicting that this minority parliament will fall because of CHRYSTIA Freeland's announcements today.
Yeah, President Zelensky brings down Kearney government is what Brad Levine is saying. I think. No,
that would be two for Chrystia Freeland.
Yeah.
Her batting average is pretty
exactly.
good.
On January 6th is tomorrow. 1 year anniversary of the Trudeau resignation. But look, I take from my conversations, it won't be setting a date for departure, Kate, in the coming weeks. It'll be gone in the coming weeks. So gain a Michael Maw, lose a Chrystia Freeland. There is interesting math there that we can talk about in the next go around. But what do you make of this? Brad says it's hard for the Conservatives to pick it apart. You're a Conservative. You want to pick it apart.
Yeah, with glee. I think a reference to resign is not a resignation.
Yeah.
And this is something based on this network's reporting that was communicated to the Prime Minister before Christmas, and no action was taken. And I think it's because the communications for the Carney government around a majority government or the prospect of a majority government become more complicated with this announcement today. And that's why there was a lot of heel dragging about announcing it. I also think that it's not fair to the constituents in University Rosedale that, she has this vague allusion to resign. We don't quite know yet when, while also in parallel advising the Ukrainian government. So either she needed to have properly resigned when she conveyed to the Prime Minister that she was accepting this appointment and it was effective immediately and a by-election needed to be immediately called, or there should have been a deferral in accepting that position with Ukraine. But right now, the way this looks is very much the way it seems, which is that the government has intentionally heel dragged on this issue and tried to delay and defer an announcement on it because they would rather be able to puff out their chest at the prospect of a majority government, which slips with today's announcement.
How do you see it, Rob?
This was less seemly and messier than it needed to be. And there are potential repercussions for that for those of us who might support robust and continuing enduring support for Ukraine. We've avoided the absurd in that we would have an economic development advisor to Ukraine, as well as somebody who was responsible for representing Canada when it came to Ukrainian reconstruction. Yeah. She could have called a meeting with herself, conceivably.
Yeah.
And so that absurdity has been put aside. But there's a fair amount of cynicism, particularly among the people who we might call sort of maple leaf MAGA types when it comes to support for Ukraine. And it's a constant battle to try and make the argument. I think the argument is crystal clear. These are people who are fighting off a dictator and people who are doing a very, very difficult job so that many of us in the West don't have to send our own flesh and blood over there. And this had the potential to fuel that kind of cynicism. I think we've avoided the worst of it, but it raises those kinds of questions.
So Priya, just not to bring math into the conversation, but it's a minority parliament, so math is kind of always at play here. They were one seat away, pending any more surprises. Now they're going to be another seat away when Chrystia Freeland leaves. There are still these other diplomatic appointments. So we expect Bill Blair to go to the United Kingdom. We expect Jonathan Wilkinson to go to Europe. That could open up some more math problems for the government. I mean, this is going to be a tricky bit of navigation for Mark Carney's team if they proceed with these plans on these timelines.
I mean, it's a good thing we have a nerdy prime minister who's good at math, then I guess, right?
It helps.
Be able to rejig the board a little bit. Yeah, look, I think everything you're saying is right, and I don't think the prime minister or those around him are, left out of the loop of that fact. But I do think that, to Kate's point about wanting this to be about on the wanting the narrative to be that they're still on the precipice of achieving net majority government was very much the case. And while this may make things a little bit more complicated because it becomes, I guess, less enticing for a floor crosser if they're not going to be the ones to then propel them into majority government territory, I would be very surprised if the talks that are, supposedly still happening, and the winks and the nudges that are happening across the aisle to see who might be interested in crossing that floor. I don't think this stops that in their tracks. I think it might get a little bit more difficult, but again, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point, but given what's happening in Venezuela and given the conservative reaction, the immediate reaction to what happened in Venezuela, I don't think it makes Mr. Polyev look like he's ready to be a G7 leader. I think it still makes him look like a campus conservative. And if you had concerns about Pierre Polyev, the Christmas break and these last, few days haven't exactly dispelled those notions.
Okay, we are going to get to that in a second. I just want to do one more round just on this because Brad, Scott Anderson, who's a conservative member of parliament for Vernon Lake Country, Monashee, posted on Facebook that he was approached by Liberals to join. We invited him on the program. We were told his statement stands. Mr. Anderson, who I've not met, that he supported the ostrich farm, for example, and things. It doesn't strike me as the person, the prime minister, and his the profile doesn't fit the profile of who they're trying to recruit. But they're down one. They're now still seeking other people. I mean, what's your read on where that stands?
Yeah, no, I don't know if Kelowna Lake Country Member of Parliament is the next best fit. I think we're running out of Conservatives in Atlantic Canada, David, to move over to Carney. There is no question that there is an all-out effort by the Liberal government to pick off Conservative members of Parliament to cross the floor and to do so before the Conservative convention. That was the case before we broke for Christmas. That is the case as we come back from the break. And I'm still of the opinion that they will. That there will be news made in the coming short weeks about Conservatives coming over. But again,
not New Democrats?
No, certainly not New Democrats. No. Conservatives coming over, as was the case we saw with our friend from Nova Scotia there in the late fall. Yep. So that's also part of the equation that Mr. Carney and his close advisors are considering as they go forward, and they're thinking of the University of Rosedale. And again, we don't have confidence motions every day. The Liberals just have to get through all of the remaining budget. We've already seen both Conservatives and New Democrats not want to oppose the budget, but not trigger an election on it. So I don't know what's changed since that time, but I'm not counting on these confidence motions coming up on the budget from last fall to still be a threat to trigger an election. And then we don't have confidence motions every day. He's got 6 months to call it. He could go early, and he could do North Van, Scarborough, and University of Rosedale. Again, with the poll as they are today, likely Liberal holds, and to bring in some fresh blood. He could do those quickly. He could do those slowly. But I honestly don't see the pressure. I'm not trying to make any case for the Liberals. But my goodness, I think there's a lot of other big things that are happening that are more likely to transpire than a general election this spring.
Okay, the Brad Levine decision desk has called those seats for the Liberals. But Kate, how big, just as quick thoughts from you and Rob, how big of a problem is this for the current Liberals, you think, going down one more with what lies ahead?
Well, the numbers game is going to be a challenge for weeks and months to come. Even in a scenario where they did get a majority by one. Mm-hmm. Again, somebody falls ill or somebody needs to resign for personal or family reasons. We're having this conversation and debate all over again. So it's a setback, but this is something that the government, based on the nature of the configuration of Parliament, is going to have to deal with. I think, just back to the matter of Freeland, we should be looking at this agnostic of Ukraine, just to Rob's point. If she were, although it would be very unlikely that the United States, perhaps under this particular administration, would be asking Chrystia Freeland for financial advice or any advice, if she were to serve the U.S. government, for example, her resignation would be demanded immediately. And the reason that it's not, maybe it's because of Ukraine. I think more likely it is because the Prime Minister would rather have a better hand in terms of his number of seats in Parliament. And so we can't let the obvious foreign conflict that exists in her continuing on as a member of Parliament to stand, because the Prime Minister would rather have a more enticing argument for Conservative or New Democrat MPs to cross. Yeah,
look, who you serve as a member of Parliament is very clear in the oath, right? And Rob, maybe she's the one driving the timeline here. That's also a consideration as well.
She has a long history of independent thought, and I don't know that too many people who have worked with her are surprised at the way that things turned out. I want to go back to something that Brad said, though, and I would agree with Kate in that there's no resting easy if you get a majority by a single vote. You're going to need more than that if you want to rest easy. But to Brad's prediction, and I took notes on it, Brad, just in case we forget about it.
Hold me to it.
Yeah. Save that clip.
If you're right, and one or more are about to cross, and if Supriya is right in that he continues to struggle, and I think that we'll see how people react to what he did and the way he did it when it comes to Venezuela. If you were the Liberals, why wouldn't you wait until after he was confirmed? If he is anathema to a great swath of the electorate, I think you would wait till after he was confirmed and then make sure that he's going to remain leader, because once they make him leader, he's the leader until like the rest of the decade.
Yeah.
Right? The rest of the decade. There wouldn't be another convention until 2029.
Yes, no, and that is the concern many conservatives have uttered in private, that he gets reconfirmed and then Carney gets what he wants out of it.
Gang, Aaron, Canadian Looney, if you like that one, you'll love this one. Like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video. Thank you for watching.